This executive order of Trump's, Betsy, that we're talking about, is absolutely genius beyond genius. None of us in the conclave saw it coming. But upon hindsight, upon reflection, we can see that he baited us all. He baited even us. We were taken to the edge thinking, exactly what is he doing here? Why has he allowed this to happen? Remember, he exposed himself to this issue of separating children at the border himself. He exposed it so that they would jump on it, and it was a bait. And now he writes an executive order to resolve it, and he's the hero again. He's the hero of the DACA people. He tried to get amnesty for them, but no, the Congress wouldn't do it. And finally, illegal aliens woke up to the fact that Republicans are their friends, not Democrats, and so they need to change their votes next time. Because really, Trump does want what's right for them. He wants a path for them, but he wants to be clear about the numbers. He doesn't want to lie. The Democratic lies about there being 800,000 DACA and is stupid. Their children, they don't even count in their parents, and the chain migration. Oh my God, chain immigration is just ridiculous. But what's happening at the border? Same thing that's always been happening at the border, except that now we're not flying these children that we take away from their parents.
Thomas, this is what's happening. Trump just made a huge offensive play. That's why this is so exciting.
Tremendous.
I know you don't follow sports, but if you were a sports fan watching this as a football game, let me tell you, this is minutes on the clock.
No, I'm very excited because it's genius, and it was showing his strategic skills, which are beyond all of us. We didn't realize that he had already targeted the most vulnerable thing, second only to DACA, children being separated at the border. He allowed it to arise as an issue because of Jeff Sessions and telling Jeff Sessions to enforce the law. And then Jeff Sessions, like an idiot, goes out and was being used as a useful idiot, they call it, and just blah, 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 I'm going to enforce the law at the border. Okay, well, Obama wasn't enforcing the law at the border. He was taking these children, the ones that he wanted, Obama, the ones, and mind you, there was no reason for taking some and not taking others, but some he was taking, putting them on airplanes and flying them to cities all throughout America into foster homes where they then disappeared and were used for human trafficking, and in some cases literally were enslaved and used as human slaves here in America. And there are numerous cases, the famous case of the egg farm in Ohio, but there are many others. The point is what he was doing was just as criminal. He built those cages, if you want to call them cages. And if you put those fake families together, if you put those young men with that child, and he says that he's that child's father, into a cage with a bunch of other people who are illegal aliens committing a felony, and they know they are, then those children are at risk. So what did Trump do in this executive order? If you read it clearly, he did not defy his base. He did not go against his base. He has stuck true to his words. It says, in the cases that we can, we will separate them. We will keep them together. But to keep them together, you have to have documentation, and you have to be seeking asylum from a place that you can actually seek asylum. Well, that's the same rules going on right now. Nothing's going to change. It says that you can use the same facilities, but you can also use other facilities that can accomplish the purpose that you want to keep these families together, which means FEMA camps, which means Walmarts, which means all these places that are all set up and ready to go and manned and are very tightly secured.
Oh, who doesn't know about that in the independent media space? We've all been wondering if the camps were for us.
He just authorized those being used. He also authorized...
Well, I hope he doesn't use all the space, because we have a lot of criminals in Washington that are going to need to go to those FEMA camps.
He also said that it's not going to change a budget. It's not going to change any rules. It's not going to change any regulations. It's not going to change the way that they do anything. It says it right in it. But what did he get to hold up? He get to hold up a victory that he is the person who's going to stop the wicked Obama, Clinton, Bush policy, which we now get to see that they all lied about because it all came out into the light. He let them hammer on him. I kept thinking to myself, okay, he opened up this target because as we're decoding the tweets, he just kept hammering on it. And I kept thinking, okay, why does he just keep exposing it when people don't understand what he's talking about. He kept talking about the loophole. The loophole is this loophole that you can only keep a child for 20 days, and then you have to release them. And if that person says that they're the parent, then they get out too. So if you're going to keep them for 20 days and separate them because you have no facilities to keep them together, then that creates catch and release by default. It's the stupidest thing ever in immigration. As Trump says, there's no country that allows this.
But I see it also left a vulnerability of the children during that time, after the 20 days and before their so-called parent could be reunited with them, for them to be picked up themselves to be used in human trafficking. What other nefarious things might be going on with the children?
That has been demonstrated. These children come up lost. The ones that Obama took at the border came up lost, and that number could be, well, certainly it's in the hundreds of thousands. And he even invited the children. Remember when he was inviting, send your children to the border, we'll take care of them. Children were pouring across the border, and Obama was clapping, and Hollywood was clapping, and everybody was thrilled, and pregnant Asian women were coming across in such huge amounts that they had to put the signs up in Chinese.
Yes,
These people were human trafficked. What do they understand? What do they think? The children just showed up at the border by themselves in droves? They were human trafficked. And guess what? On the other side, we're waiting the people who claim them, the people who claim to be their parents. And that's what's happening down there. And that's what Trump was trying to point out. No one would listen. He tried to point out that these laws existed. No one would listen. He tried to point out that the loophole was there. No one would listen.
They didn't want to listen. They didn't want it changed. Republicans and Democrats benefit from this poorly written law.
He pointed out that people die in droves traveling to our border, trying to get across that border through the drug cartels, and they are human trafficked and often die in the back of trucks and in just horrible, horrible ways. And what do? We don't build a border. If we built a border that they couldn't get through, none of that could happen. And as somebody said, you know what? Any woman that commits a felon in this country is locked up, and they, by default, are separated from their children. So get over it, folks. If you willingly commit a felony, and there are very few of them that have documentation to state that those are their children, and if you knew that child was going to be your freedom in America, wouldn't you bring some documentation with you to state your name and your child's name and demonstrate that's your child so that you could get asylum, claiming it for whatever reason? You can claim that your husband beat you now and you get an asylum. And if you came through Mexico, Mexico committed an atrocious unlawful act by allowing them to cross their border once and sometimes twice, and other countries once and twice. And Trump has said no more U.S. aid to those countries because those countries are committing crimes to send these people here. And especially when it's MS-13 or other gangs from Honduras and El Salvador and other places that, in fact, they know they're sending us their criminals so they don't have to house them. And what do we have to do? House them. What are the statistics between, they're probably lies anyway, but between 45 to 65% of all people held in a prison in America is an illegal immigrant? Do you understand how much money that is? I worked in the prison system. It is astounding. You know what it costs to keep a person on death row? $1 million a year.
Anyway, we need to send the illegals that are in our prison system back where they came from, because we're going to need that space for all the people we're going to be arresting in Washington. Now, we didn't say at the beginning that the executive order that you're talking about is included in the description box.
The executive order might as well say, I stand up for the rule of law, and I order Jeff Sessions to stop this 1997 silly, really turned out to be a regulation that Obama created through the recommendation of a legal action in California, which is a stupid legal action. So he's saying overturn that in a federal court and push this back so that within the next 20 days, we stop the 20-day rule, because the 20-day rule by default creates catch and release. And no one can understand this unless you're a lawyer. But what did he do? He turned it into a beautiful Hollywood meltdown. Who was it? Peter Fonda?
Yes.
Went completely off his rocker.
Awful things about
you have De
Melania's
Niro,
son.
who's always been off his rocker, the spokesperson now for cussing out Trump. You have Jim Carrey. You have all of them stepping forward saying, my union card is on the line if I can't stop you, Trump. That's what they told me. I will no longer be part of the union if I do not fight you and win. And that's what they're actually doing. And they're losing. And so their union cards, what's it doing? People aren't going to movies. They're turning off Netflix. They're turning off their Facebook. I just saw a statistic I have to prove, but they say 40% of Facebook followers have left in the last year. How come that doesn't reflect upon the stock market or his stock or his lies that he tells us? I mean, what he reports.
Well, because, of course, the stock market is rigged, and we all know it out here in Main Street America.
And so what we're seeing here is genius upon genius upon genius. I love it now. They moved up to 6D chess. In the media, they call Trump's genius 6D, six-dimensional chess. How many dimensions are there? Well, he's there. However many dimensions there are, he's there because he even outsmarted us. We could not think of a way that he could turn this mess around. And what did he do? He stood up and said, I stand for lawfulness. I win. And I just got me a whole slew of undocumented aliens who have gotten Social Security cards from our Social Security Department and work and pay taxes, and we give them tax returns, and they're going to vote for me next time. Because why? In their small minds, they believe virtue signaling. They believe that executive order was saying to them, I love y'all. But it doesn't. It says, I follow the law. And he says anyone who comes across our border can be expected to be treated to zero tolerance and the full weight of the law. And if you think using a child anymore is your way out, it ain't going to work. You watch what happens in the statistics for next month. They will drop by 400% how many children come across the border. Mark my words. Those children come across healthy, treated well. They don't even come across with diseases. Those are kidnapped children because those are the healthy children of Mexico, of Central America, and South America that they lie and say are their ticket into America. And by that catch and release rule, we have untold, undocumented, illegal felon aliens, many of whom should be in prisons in the countries they come from. And when we send them back, those countries don't put them in prison. So Trump is going to stop giving them U.S. aid. And that is $80 billion a year. Betsy, I don't know, maybe we're to 9D chess. And I think just as you said, we're going to be seeing some surprises. That was a setup. When Parscale said, yeah, I admit I used Cambridge Analytica. It went bankrupt. It's bankrupt. Its mother company went bankrupt. We found out that the spy agencies that created that also created probably the Arab Spring and worked with Obama and always worked with Obama. Robert Hannigan came over and used Fort Meade to spy on Trump during the election. I mean, we're in unprecedented times. He has to do unprecedented things. So when he was being attacked by stupidity on all levels, he just trumped them, showing the power that he has to manipulate the media. He always said this. Remember before he started The Apprentice, what did he say? Hollywood is stupid. They don't understand anything. I could get a show and I'd be number one. They all thought he was nuts. He'd still be number one if he was still doing The Apprentice. So the point is when he says these things, check it out, folks. He's been saying them for decades. He always follows through. So just sit back and be thrilled at the fact that he takes a Horowitz report as complete exoneration because he sees through it. He sees what's going to be the ultimate demise of the process of the IG, so that when he demands a complete restructuring of these things, the special counsel section, the laws that Janet Reno fixed, so they became regulations so that you can have illegal special counsels like Mueller, the things that covered Comey, the cover of national security in the FBI and the DOJ and the CIA and the none of that needs to exist. It all has to be redone. He already ordered that to be redone. And since the beginning of June, we are seeing astounding transformations in all agencies, folks. If you're not paying attention, his executive orders that have ordered the Treasury to freeze thousands, and no one knows. I think 12,000 people are on the list. We don't know how many exactly he's put there. Thousands and thousands and thousands more sanctions on Russians. Who are those Russians? Oh, Oleg Deripaska, who meddled in the election? Oh, sorry, or Oleg and your aluminum oligarchy in Russia, aluminum? How about the Russian steel magnates? Oh, yes. How about the people that he's frozen the assets all over the world? Why do you think they listen to him? Americans should listen. As he said, just like with Kim, they sit up and listen to him. I wish I had that. Because mainstream media, he is the best historical president so far, according to statistics, no matter how egotistic, bombastic, or whatever you want to think about his personality. Sorry, we Americans who want to put America first, we accept those. That's great. He uses those against our enemies. We love that. And he's using them against you, and you're playing into it. He just rode you around the block. He just scammed you. There are so many words for what he just did to you. He set you up. He framed you. It was an ambush. You're all too stupid to even know what just happened.
He gave them enough rope to hang themselves.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Is Trump zoomed him.